Good morning, this is Roger Thunder with the Red Road channel. Please subscribe, please like, and if you can, offer a small donation at the link that I'll put in the show notes at spiritofcrazyhorse.com, and I'll also put it in the comments. So let's get right on with the video here. Today's content will be called Custers' Last Stand, or the Battle of the Little Bighorn, or the Greasy Grass. Custer's last stand took place in the year 1876, June 25th and through the 26th. And it consisted of a battle between the 7th Cavalry and groups of tribes, Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Lakota to be specific. So actually the battle took place at the Little Bighorn River. And this river stretched, and here's a picture of it here, probably around the same location. Lots of grass, see there, greasy grass. That's why they call it the Battle of the Greasy Grass, or the Battle of the Little Bighorn. And this river stretched through Montana and Wyoming territories. So the actual battle took place on the banks of this river. So a lot of stuff happened, or a lot of things led up to this particular battle, and I spoke about this in previous videos on Crazy Horse and some of the Lakota wars, but I didn't really go into detail on the battles. But there was a big meeting that took place on the shores, or on the banks of the Little Bighorn, and this all came about through pressure from the white man, or the white eyes, or the long knives, or the blue coats, or the Americans, or the government soldiers, whatever you want to call them. They had been suffering a long time before this battle with the incursion, and other battles like 100 in the Hand and the Fetterman Massacre, and other things that I have talked about. But they decided to get together because it was getting to the point where enough is enough. We have to have a council. And so in this council, the main characters were Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. Tsunke Wheatgo, Crazy Horse. And Sitting Bull was considered a high medicine man, a leader, more of a shaman or a medicine man type figure. Although he had good facility as far as being able to fight in wars and be a warrior and lead warriors, as did Crazy Horse. So they decided to get together because they said enough is enough. We really have to do something about this incursion. And that's when they decided that they were going to have a meeting, almost kind of like a rendezvous, a powwow, a big powwow. And thousands, more than they even imagined, showed up because word got out. And they all showed up along the banks of the Little Bighorn. And there were trees nearby. In this landscape you see that it's pretty flat, but there was a lot of trees and bushes from different angles on one side of the river. Kind of like a small forested area. So it was just a beautiful setting for them to get together in the first place, and they decided that they were going to have a sun dance and call down Great Spirit through the sun dance, or commune with Great Spirit, Wakan Tonka, or also known as Tunkashila. And, of course, Mother Earth would be in that mix as well, Unsi Maka. And the spirits of the four directions, Sapa, Luta, Ki, and Ogagaska. They would summon the spirits of the land and the ancestral spirits, and they would talk about what they were going to do. And they did, and they had council, and they had a sun dance, and several significant things happened at this meeting. Here's a picture of Sitting Bull with family. I like this picture. He's holding the sacred pipe, it looks like, the Chanupa. And he has his single eagle feather. And he's pretty much looking like he's in a more, less warrior, more medicine man type attire here. He's got his sacred shawl. Beaded sacred shawl, I should say, along with beaded moccasins. Find a pair of those today and they'll be worth quite a few green frog skins. So Sitting Bull was Hunkpapa Lakota. And again, he was very well known as a medicine man, a chief, a leader. And at this particular gathering, he had conferred via, another warrior, a runner. He had conferred with and sent messages to Crazy Horse back and forth. And they decided, like I said before, it was time, and they gathered at this encampment. And there were thousands of teepees, and there were so many horses that showed up there that they actually had to move the camp because the horses ate all the grass right down to the bare earth. So they shifted their camp a little bit during this gathering, but for the most part they just camped out on the river, were having a good time. But it was a good time, but it was also a very serious and spiritual time because they were faced with extinction, basically. And they knew that, and they knew that they had to put up a stand. But during this gathering, one of the things that happened with Sitting Bull is, well, he did a piercing. First of all, he did a major piercing, a Sundance type piercing on his skin, which offers flesh to Great Spirit. I can't remember whether it was 50 on each arm or total, or something like that. It was a large amount. And he also had visions at this particular time, and he had dreams about the long knives and what was going to happen with that. And one of his dreams was very prophetic. Actually, there's pictures of it that were painted by some of the braves, some of the warriors, some of the people of that time. I'll have to look for that. Don't know if I can include it. If I can find it, I'll include it in this video. I just kind of go easy here and do the video a little bit at a time. I do all this from memory, by the way, and so I might miss a few facts and figures. There's so much history and so much colorful, intimate detail surrounding this whole thing that I just can't go into at all, especially from, let's say, a high spiritual, metaphysical aspect. But this dream here that he had was soldiers falling from the sky upside down, kind of like rain. And they were dead. the soldiers were dead, and they were, and they were the long knives, the blue coats, and they were falling from the heavens, upside down, falling down. And so that was a very, very prophetic dream. And they sat around and they talked about the dream or the vision. The leaders, Crazy Horse. There were other major leaders. There were so many people involved in this. Gaul was one of them. Was a major figure. The warrior and the chief Gaul was a standout figure in this battle, as was Crazy Horse and many others. So many others. It's hard to mention them all, and they all of the people of that time wrote down accounts. So there's no mistaking what actually went down. They all wrote down their accounts of what happened, what battle happened where, what blue coats or long knives were cornered where, which way they ran, what ridge they ran to, whether it was in Medicine Tail Coulee or one of the other ridges and arroyos around that particular area. So I'll put up a picture of Crazy Horse now. This is actually a colorized. There are no actual photos of Crazy Horse. He didn't like to be taken, his picture to be taken, because of loss of his spirit. So this is an actual, one of his relatives, somebody that knew him, actually did a sketch, just a line drawing from memory. And I took that line drawing and I colorized it. This is actually the drawing colorized. Had the shirt and everything. But this is probably the closest thing that you're going to get a profile type, classic profile type shot. And yes, he did wear an eagle feather, but sometimes he took this eagle feather and turned it down, which was very unusual, but not for a Heyoka, because he was a thunder dreamer or a Heyoka, which was a special person that had dreams of the thunders or the Wakanyan, the thunder bird, the thunder beings, the spirits of the clouds and storms and lightning and rain. And he had visions, and he had dreams, and he had a dream of his future, and he was a heavy-duty shaman, medicine man, warrior. And his father was a medicine man. And his father's name was Crazy Horse, which was passed down to him. His first name was Gigi, or the light-haired one, or Curly, because his hair didn't look the typical Lakota way. It wasn't like dark and shiny and long and straight. It was more curly and lighter colored, and nobody could figure it out. So he was almost like a messiah of sorts in my mind, a very unique individual, and he was very introspective and meditated a lot, went out into the hills, wouldn't take part in ceremonies celebrating after a battle, celebrating their accomplishments or the killing of others. He wouldn't celebrate it. He went out into the hills and meditated and had visions. So this is the guy that hooked up with Sitting Bull. What a powerhouse. No wonder things came about the way they did. Talk about spiritual power. They basically, through their energy, through their communication, through their reputation, it just radiated out to all these people, Cheyenne, Arapaho, coming together on this bank of the Greasy grass, the Little Bighorn River, and having strong counsel and having war counsel and having religious counsel, spiritual counsel, invoking the spirits, invoking the spirits of the ancestors. Incidentally, Tunkashila could mean that as well when we're talking about a name for the Lakota god. But Wakantanka will do, and Tunkashila, Great Spirit, the Great Mystery, and all the spirits that go with that. And included in that would be reverence for Mother Earth, Unsi Maka, and the whole thing. And so they sat and they smoked the chanupa, the sacred pipe, pass it around, offered smoke, burnt sage and sweetgrass. And that's, again, when Sitting Bull had his vision of the soldiers falling out of the sky. I like this picture of Sitting Bull. I thought I'd flash this one up here real quick. And this actually, it shows the painting of that time. This might be an actual painting. I'm thinking it is because it looks very much like it. Of how the braves or the people of that time or the artists of that time depicted, the Indian artists depicted things. And here you see it. This is probably Custer's battle right here, I would assume. Notice the eagle feather, again, before it was up. Now it's facing down. I'll tell you what that meant, in my opinion, from memory or just from my feeling. This is like when the feather is facing down, it's time to get down to business. Yeah, I mean, you know, as you walk around in the village and stuff, your feather's up and it looks cool that way. But when you got that feather down, baby, that means you're getting ready for business. You're getting ready to go to war. You're getting ready to be a supreme warrior. And hoka hey, it is a good day today, and courage up, my boys, and all that good shit. Yeah, a lot of this garb that they wore, a lot of this dress, this I call them almost like a uniform, but what color, huh? And they had secret things that they used in their medicine bundle. For instance, if you dig deep, you can actually find out what they carried in these medicine bundles. For instance, Crazy Horse and probably Sitting Bull also, and all the others had their own way of protection and their own way of their own ritual as far as being impervious to gunshots and that type thing. And one of the things that was in Crazy Horse's bundle was a round stone with a hole in it. Now, the round stone is also used in the sacred pipe ceremony, the chanupa, or the chanumpa. And they carried other things like human hair and different things that had a meaning to them. And so another thing they with the round stone thing is Crazy Horse used to put a round smooth stone behind his left ear. And also, I believe one was in his medicine. I think he might have actually put one on his horse as well. And he also dusted his horse with this fine dirt called mole dirt, which was probably from the mole digging into the ground and leaving that fine dirt. The mole had a great significance as a shape-shifting type animal. So there were all kinds of things going on. You might want to compare this, let's say, with a blue coat. They all looked the same. They all dressed in uniforms. They all had the blue coats. They were all military, and they had no colorful decorations such as the warriors of the tribes did, or that connection with the land and Great Spirit. Let me emphasize that. Okay, so let's jump to this picture that I found here that I talked about earlier, the vision of Sitting Bull. This is a depiction of it. Could be of the battle itself. I'm not sure if this is an actual depiction of the dream, but the dream would be similar to like these guys here, which are the long knives falling out of the sky. And I do believe that this character right here in this painting was, I'm thinking that this may have been Crazy Horse. And you could see groups of Indians. That's how the battle took place. Pretty soon, I'll go into that in a minute, but this could also be. I just love these depictions here. There's some that are even more graphic that shows arms and legs cut off, and but this just looks like the chaos of battle. I'll get into that. I'm going to tell you how all this started. Actually, it did start kind of surprisingly on both parts. Although the Lakota knew that the blue coats, that Custers men and that Crook's men and that all these General Crook and Custer, they knew that they were in the vicinity because they had Crazy Horse had just gone to battle at the Rosebud against Crook, and that was quite a battle in itself, which preceded this battle. Kind of took the wind out of the sails of the Long Knives. Quite a few were killed in that battle, and that was something else. But I'm not going to get into that battle right now. But let's put it this way: this incursion by Custer and I think it was Reno and Benteen and others of the military of the Bluecoats. That's why they came. That's why they were out there looking. And Custer was one of those guys that he considered himself an Indian fighter, and he was going to make a name for himself, and he was full of himself, really. Let's jump to a picture of Custer, if I could find it here. And here he is, the story, the picture. Picture's worth 1,000 words. This is a colorized photo of Custer. And make no mistake about it, he was a warrior. He was somebody that had been in significant battles in his life, had hung out with all kinds of generals, and was at the Battle of Gettysburg, and made quite a name for himself, actually, as a military man. He's kind of an enigma in a lot of ways. I'm pretty sure the name that the Lakota tacked on him was Longhair. Also, I think he was called Son of the Morning Star or something like that. They did have respect for Custer. Although that day at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, there are stories pro and con as to, even if they knew that Custer was in that group of people, particular group of people they were fighting. But I have no doubt in my mind that they knew Custer was there. They might not have known which one was Custer at first. But as the battle proceeded on towards the end, when there were a lot of bodies laying around, and there were a lot of little, let's say, cells that had kind of gathered together to stand off the Indians, they knew, and there's actual stories which I will tell in a minute here about that. But let's get into the battle here. Let's talk about the battle, how it began, some of those type things. Incidentally, he was about 5'11" and 150 pounds. And so anyway, like I mentioned earlier, Crazy Horse had gone off on another battle that preceded this one called the Battle of the Rosebud, and that was General Crook. And that there was a whole lot of 1,500 or more soldiers coming in, and I think the band that attacked with Crazy Horse attacked Crook was only like 300 or something. Somewhere around there. Could have been a little bit more, but that was before the Battle of Little Bighorn, and that caused a setback, and that caused Crook to have to retreat, and lots of wounded and lots of dead soldiers. And the way they fought that battle was awesome because it was a very spiritual battle, and they prepared themselves and they went in. I'm talking about the Indians here, the Lakota and the Cheyenne. And Crazy Horse, he was the leader of that war, or that that battle. And that did not end up well for Crook. So after Crook, that's when they gathered at the in fact, they may have already been gathered. I'm thinking now they may have already been gathered at the bank there. They were there for quite a while. And so when word got out of the Crook fiasco, him not being able to hold his own, people got angry of course, in the military, and they ordered in Armstrong Custer, and he had George Armstrong Custer. He had his in and outs with the military, falling out. I think he was even demoted at one time, and then raised back up in rank, and he was insolent. Let's put it that way. He was full of himself, according to all accounts. Kind of see it in his face here, maybe, huh? And he got in trouble with his superiors. He was kind of a loose cannon. Now again, the Lakota respected him. They knew who he was. They knew he had a reputation as a quote-unquote Indian fighter. In fact, it's kind of an enigma in a way, because there was a side to Custer that knew the Indians well, and actually he even had a mistress or a concubine or a lover, supposedly it is said, from the tribes. And so, yes, he was married to, I think her name was Libby. And it was a very proper thing, she was back at the fort and all that stuff. But let's face it, Custer was not at the fort a whole lot of the time. He was out in the field. He was out rubbing shoulders here and there. And so the story of him having a lover or a paramour is entirely accepted. So he was a respected Indian fighter by both sides. I mean, let's face it, the Lakota warriors and the Cheyenne warriors just respected warriorship in general. No pun intended, not General Custer, but in general. And their wars were different, of course, before their confrontation with people like Custer and General Crook. Their wars amongst themselves were very different as night and day, which had to do with respect for the other tribes, warriors or chiefs or whatever, counting coup, not necessarily going out to kill a lot of people, but just to show your bravery and courage and manhood. And yes, people got killed, of course. But their whole concept of war was different, to where the military for the government of the United States was more into just how many can we kill. It did, there was it wasn't about honor. It wasn't about counting coup or bravery or anything like that. Yes, bravery maybe. But the whole ambiance surrounding the wars with the tribes amongst themselves was totally different than when they went up against the white man, because they knew that the white man was just like a machine, soulless military machine, setting a course and having an agenda. And the agenda was to exterminate native people of this land, period. Either to exterminate or to subjugate. So that's what they were up against. Now the battle started at the south end of this encampment. It was first, if memory serves me correct, it was a woman swimming in the river, and some of the women. One of the women was Chief Gall's wife and child, and I think that they were killed right off the bat. I'm not sure, but Chief Gall played a big part in the first attack at this end, in the south end, I believe it was, of this encampment. And they, when they first, somebody came running in and said they saw soldiers. And these soldiers were coming in. They were like, if you look at this before they even got there, they were just kind of following trails and tracks. And Custer had no idea of the size of this encampment. That's what was the deciding factor. He kind of happened onto it by accident. And but he had in his mindset was, it doesn't matter, I don't care, we'll get those redskins, we'll get those savages, we'll rout them out, we'll take care of them, wherever they are, whatever village. They were actually looking for a village, but not an encampment of thousands of people and warriors and horses, and they had no idea what they were getting into here. This is Chief Gall. Great picture of him, great photo of him. There are colorized photos of this as well as paintings. And this was the person whose wife was taken out right from the very beginning, as historians tell us. And he was one of the ones that decisively went in and put a stop to like these guys just kind of flowing in out of nowhere. Of course, it surprised the bluecoats, the long knives, as much as it surprised the Indians. I mean, for that particular day and that particular hour, let's put it that way. And so that's the point where Custer and Reno, I think Reno might have been one of the first divisions or group of people in there, him and his platoon or division or whatever it was, group of bluecoats went in there, and I think that's when, so when they first came in from the south and Gall put up a charge. And that's when they started gathering the people, and there was enough time, actually, by all accounts, that, well, yeah, Crazy Horse was the kind of guy that would just, okay, here they come. And he was in the river swimming, and he got out of the river and got on his horse and did the ritual that he needed to do with the stone behind the ear and the dusting of the horse. And actually they painted lightning bolts on the legs of the horse sometimes, and they also put handprints on there. All of these things had a meaning, a deep meaning, a spiritual meaning. Not only were they decorated for battle, but so were the horses as well. So basically, when Crazy Horse got wind of this, it spread like wildfire around the camp. He got ready, got on his horse, and said the famous war cry, "Hoka hey," or "Courage up, my boys," or "It is a good day to die." And which is what that meant. It's a good day to die. Kind of similar to the Bushido code of the samurai, who accepted death before he went into battle, which took away the fear. If you're already dead, then what are you afraid of? You just go in and you fight. And so Crazy Horse galloped off, and it is said that he would also gallop around a campfire, or gallop around one of the small segments of this large encampment, villages within the encampment, and he would ride around and doing his war chant, and slowly, not slowly, but as soon as they saw him riding around, they would come out, the braves and the warriors, and jump on their horses and start following. Well, this is one of those type of deals where he did that, and he headed off to where they were coming in, or he thought they were coming in, and yes, he found them. They were coming through the trees. They were coming in from several different angles, happening in, and it was all one large group of people. They were coming in, so he went and split them. Crazy Horse went and split them, and it is said that he galloped up and down in front of this. After he split them up, he galloped up in front and down on his horse, and they were shooting at him, and he was. And the Lakota warriors and Cheyenne warriors on one side were watching him, and he's, after he split it, he made this parade, this run, this fast run back and forth, with them firing volleys of rounds of ammunition at him, not one hitting him, and inspiring the troops to, the Lakota warriors to go on, and striking fear into the troops. This was all of a sudden exploded into a rout, and people scurrying for cover and going this way and that. Here's another painting of Gaul. I like this artist's rendition of the paintings because he looks at the photo and he basically paints the photo freehand. This is an excellent painting of Gaul, which I like to put in here, and I'll jump around and show you a few of the other warriors that were involved in this. Here's a guy named Rain in the Face. Again, this was taken from an actual photo, and then you have it looks like he's got a red-tailed hawk wing and two eagle feathers. Not wing, feather, excuse me. So this is a great photo of someone else that was involved. You had another guy named Red Horse that was involved. And these feathers, incidentally, always indicated some kind of accomplishment in battle, a kill or something of that nature, or a winning of that battle or whatever, courage, just giving, honoring them for their ability to fight. Here's another photo of Spotted Eagle. He was involved. He was a friend of Crazy Horse, like I said in previous videos. I mean, there were so many. Look at this war club here. Now, here's a typical war club that they use. This was actually, usually it was made from the stock of a rifle that wasn't usable anymore or whatever. They'd use a stock, and they'd put brass tacks on it, as well as embedding knives into it. And this was a favorite weapon of Crazy Horse, the war club. He probably did more damage and killing with that thing than he did with his bow. I mean, he went right in. He waded right into the battle, and would have at it, okay? And you did not want to get hit by one of these things. And so that's basically what's happening right now. You get all these warriors coming in. And as they're coming in, the bluecoats, the long knives are freaking out, and they realize that they got split in half there. And then again, they went off on this ridge, I think that was to the south. I'm not sure about directions here, but they were all coming in from one direction, let's put it that way. But as they were coming in from this one direction, it kind of spread out to where they were trying to make incursions in other directions, I do believe. I am not that familiar on the strategic aspect of this. All I know is from the stories. Now, when they got split up, some of them went down into the forested area. Some of them went up into what they called a ridge there. There was a ridge there, and they had designations for names after the battle, like Crook's Hill and Custers Hill, and they had different names for the places where these Indians would come out on. Now the Indians are ones that did come in from all sides. I mean, they were supreme tacticians. They knew how to fight. They'd been in a lot of battles, and they came in from all sides. They waded right into the middle of them. See, the long knives were used to having like a skirmish line. Let's set up a skirmish line and, fend them off that way. Problem was, when they went in, when Crazy Horse went in and divided them up, it also divided up the skirmish line, and other skirmish lines that could have been formed weren't, because they were on the run then. And it was horrific. I mean, there were guys scrambling up mud banks with the clawing, trying to get out of this situation where the Lakota warriors and the Cheyenne warriors had come in and were just wreaking havoc and whooping, and had no fear whatsoever, absolutely no fear. And these guys were deathly afraid. They didn't know what to do, and their commanders were split up, and they started scrambling up the hill. And then one side of the battle got caught on the ridge, and then the other side of the battle, which incidentally where Custer was on this like Custer's Hill, which was divided from the ridge or part of the ridge. And he got caught in there, and the horses were killed. A lot of horses were killed. They were on foot. They were shooting with their pistols and carbines. And but that didn't do any good, because it was like a wave. It just wave after wave would come in, and ended up to where, they'd be down to groups of like 3 or 4 guys huddled together. And this was a take no prisoner approach by the Lakota. Probably would have been for the Bluecoats too. But the Lakota knew better. They just figured, I don't know if there was any, there might have been 1 or 2 survivors in this. Maybe they were like Indian scouts for Custer. He had Crow Indian scouts, and the Crow were enemies of the Lakota. And so one of them might have survived. I think one of them did survive. I'll have to check on that, but you can check on it too. Just dive in and find out. But that's what happened. And so as this battle proceeded, Reno's division got split off, and Benteen and one guy came in late, and I'm not sure of the whole logistics of the thing, but long story short, they lost, and they got all massacred. Custer's last stand. Some people depict him in a jacket, and I do have a. Let me see if I could pull up a an actual, let's say, painting or what this artist thought it might look like or whatever. Let me pull that up. Custers' Last Stand. Okay, let's jump to this picture. Now, this is an artist's rendition of what The Last Stand. Of course, it's almost comic book, but there's plenty. But this is done pretty well. I mean, except for the buckskin coat here. Now, yes, Custer was said to have been always wearing his buckskin coat, but by the accounts, the real accounts, that this buckskin coat had been, it was hot. Okay, you're not going to be wearing a heavy buckskin coat. And it was rolled up behind his saddle. That's what the true nitty-gritty of that deal is. But this is a good depiction anyway, and supposedly this is his brother that got killed there as well. And they're kind of like in last stand position. You can see the horses going. This is a good depiction of that. This is what it would have looked like. Got a guy laying here with an arrow in him. And horses dead, and mostly everybody dead, and a lot of bodies were cut up, mutilated. Yeah, they were definitely making a statement. Let's put it that way. They were making a statement for anybody else that came along. Now, when I say, you know, that was just typical practice. First they'd go in, strip the bodies, take everything they could off of them. I mean, even stuff like this bugle or any, you know, looking glasses, guns, anything they could get their hands on that they could use in the form of weaponry, even clothes. You saw a lot of soldiers. I mean, you saw a lot of warriors at that time wearing like a guy's tunic or whatever, parts of an American flag, whatever. They just took everything and they actually made clothes out of it or whatever. They used it. They didn't waste it. All kinds of lances here. Yes, this was the final. So when Custer was on this ridge, after they got split up, that's when he got trapped on. This was probably like Custer's Hill right here. And there was no getting out of that one alive, period, in the story. And so that basically is the story as I will present it today about what went down. I like to include other things that are of a spiritual aspect of the nature of the Lakota people, like the visions, like the spirituality, like the courage, like the virtues these people, the native people, live by. This was a situation, you have to remember, where they were backed into a corner, had been through many battles, had many battle scars, had many bad things done to them, incursion on their land. White settlers making their way up into the Pahasapa, the Black Hills, the Buttes, Bear Butte, eventually forcing the natives onto reservations like Pine Ridge and Standing Rock. And this was kind of like the last big effort to stop these people. That's what the Battle of Little Bighorn was. It was like everybody got together and said, this has got to stop, only it didn't stop. But they made a damn good try. And at that point, they were just now, it took a while for the natives of this land to realize how brutal and how merciless and how savage the actual white man was. Let's not forget the white man was doing all kinds of things before this, like scalping and doing all the stuff that was attributed just to the natives. Yes, they did that too. But the white man actually, there was bounties at specific places in Arizona for the Apaches, of scalps being brought in for $100 bounty or $50, and a kid was 25, you know. So let's not have too much sorrow here, in my humble opinion, for the just rewards. And these people knew, these people weren't, even the soldiers, they knew they were putting their life on the line. So I'm not downplaying them. And I'm not saying that each individual person didn't have a life and a story and a history and all that good stuff. But I'm just presenting the bigger picture here. So anyway, I guess that's going to end this video on the Battle of Little Bighorn. There are so many things that I could put in here, really. If you like this video, please go in the show notes below to the link of my website called spiritofcrazyhorse.com. And my email is rogerthunderhands@gmail.com. And I wish to thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe, and if you will, a small donation is always appreciated at this site, which I will again put in the show notes and in the commentary section. So until next time, this is Thunder saying Whoopee-la, aho.